Hi, everybody. Um, we're in a motel room, obviously, Liz and I. Hi, Tantra.
Hi, everyone.
And I want to kind of tell the story of how this all started. I know we've got about 3 minutes, so I'm just going to kind of randomly chat until people can get on. And if those of you that aren't on our Tapatalk temple of mind, in direct unity with creation, and those of you that aren't on our WhatsApp thread. So if you have a minute, we have about 3 minutes to get a notebook, and it's not a notebook to take down information, which is fine if you do that, but it's more a notebook to write your reflections, to write what shows up for you. And then I'm basically going to sit here and tell you a dream for those of you as you come on. And then we'll go into the meat of the day. And just for me, just a profound appreciation for getting to do this. And I can't thank you enough. You know, our email is theoffice@tantramat.com. And some of you have really written some just lovely, lovely emails to me about to the office, about your experience here. And, you know, it's really hard. I'm from the United States of America, and some of you all aren't. And one of the things about being a USAer is that we actually think we're very intimate people. We actually aren't that intimate. You know, we do courses, mega courses, but the shared personal intimacy every week, that's not common. It's more like you have to be, you know, even in therapy, you know, they tell you can't be directly involved with the person, the patient's life, that you have to stay aloof. You have to be a teacher. I have to be a teacher. I have to guide you. Oh, we're going to have lots of noise, by the way. We have dogs and people passing behind us at our motel. So we're on our way to Denver. So just include everything, because that's what we're doing. We're being a culture of unity together. And so today kind of came through a strange and unusual means, and which I always laugh, because when somebody asks me what this year would be about, and I would say the next 3 years is about how life would occur, and I said it will occur differently in strange and unusual ways, and it is occurring differently in strange and unusual ways. So it's a very amazing time. And now it's 9, so I can start. So I'm going to tell you a dream, and why Liz is off camera is because we're sort of mimicking, we're sort of, what's the word? Play acting. We're in our kitchen. Well, actually, we're in our bedroom and our kitchen and our bathroom in a single room house. And we just kind of said to each other, okay, let's just play act this experience that started flowing through me actually quite a few years ago. And this term, carefully crafted term, timeless time, that came from creation, let's not mock it up, because it's not like mocking it up like there's something I know that I'm transmitting. It's really literally a practice of putting yourself in the field of creation and seeing what rises. We do this in meditation. We do it when we walk with nature. We do it when we read a book. We do it when we watch a movie. But in the nature of human being, the most powerful thing we could ever do is be in unity with creation and see what rises. And so I'm going to tell you my dream, and why Liz is off camera is we're being like, she's listening, like when we do Timeless Time, everybody will be on Zoom and they'll be listening of how I'm framing something. And then they'll communicate with me after. And how we'll do that is I'll turn the computer facing Liz, and then she will share what came up for her, what rose in creation. Any knowledge we have now is useless. You know, we are not in new knowledge we'll discover. we are a new knowledge that we're generating and creating in our being able to be present to what there is to be present to and open up into what there is to open up into and have what there is to have. So I'm going to tell you my dream. So in my dream, everybody was doing a course with me on this very, very high mountaintop. And it's very interesting because Liz was talking about, she's California, so she's at sea level. We're not at sea level, believe me, we're at 7,000 feet. So she's adjusting her ability to breathe because there's a shift in altitude. And what was so interesting is in this dream, we were in the top of mountaintop, probably like 13,000 feet, and comes to mind. But one of this amazing acupuncturist from Columbus, Ohio, once said that he goes to high altitude because the emotional field stays very calm, because and the mind works better because basically the nervous system is somewhat suppressed because you're concentrating on breathing. And so these two people had an Eastern look, were in their convertible. I forgot to say it was a convertible to Liz. They were in their convertible, like a little Jag, and they were coming down the mountaintop after the course, and they were reflecting on the course, which is timeless time, of course. And all of a sudden, the boy realized that his brake lines had been cut. And in the dream, it was like this way we live. We live like, if we're not careful, we'll find our brake lines cut. We live in a survival mentality. That was the other dream. So I have 2 dreams to share because it always happens for me before I do work or realms of the beloved, that the greater universe comes in and broadens the spectrum that I'm paying attention to and that I've been called to present. But what happened is they knew they were going to, as they were in a tight turn, they knew they were going to go off the cliff. They sailed over the trees, and without their realizing it, there was another mountain with another road that was flat. And they hit that road literally perfectly. And then their car coasted to a stop. And he turned and looked at his wife, partner, friend. And he said to her, this is what we were learning on the mountain, that what we learned on the mountain is when our system moves back into being in unity with creation, or systemically we've returned, then the universe can take care of us. So that's why timeless time, and that's why everything for me. The other thing that happened earlier that I'd forgotten, that's also I knew was to be relayed in this conversation, is when I started working in my 19, by the time I was 22, I was really aware of the human condition, and that includes me. I wasn't separate from it. I'm human, duh. And what I realized was that we have amnesia, and that we're caught in mesmerizations, not by our choosing. That something had happened to our brain function. Something had literally happened where we could not remember. And it was as if something had forced us to forget, because there was something about human remembering that restored reality. I am the word. I am the thought. I am where creation exists here. And so in that first part of the dream, there was an audiency to it. In other words, something was kind of teaching me. And it said, you all are the survivors. In other words, those of us here are the survivors. We survived. We didn't give in to the mesmerization. And we're fighting our butts off to remember. And it takes restoring new neural function. It just takes that, like we are brain dead. And that's why a lot of traditions work in repetitive statements or work in repetitive habits. Because at least if you're forcing yourself into new neural function, it it can wake up the brain. The brain is the receptor of information, and it's not just information data. It's where things come into form by being inside forming. So in this work that we're going to do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Timeless Time, we are restoring our neural fabric by being inside forming. And what medium we're using is a medium, me, and you that are participating on behalf of all of you who aren't, because we're a shared field, which you're going to really get a kind of a taste in today. And but inside forming, which we're now in, we will be in it strong the next 5 years. We keep looking for answers and knowledge we already should know or think we should know, but it doesn't exist because we're inside forming. So somehow when I was born, I carried two minds. In fact, it made me schizophrenic for about 3 years until my beautiful doctor I got to realize that I had two minds moving at the same time. We call it the mystical mind, which we don't give much reverence for. We just think it's kind of like a way to be aware, but it's actually where we come into form is in the mystical mind, not in the logical, rational mind, not in the outside circumstances that we interpret. We come into form through being in the mind of creation, the mystical mind, and keep being in form. Do you understand? We keep being informing or informed, but it's better to say informing. And this body of work I'm going to do with a group of us the next 11 months. They say, is it being or is it becoming? Well, is it informed or is it inside forming? A good question, don't you think? And we are inside forming. So I developed, by the time I was 22, I would say that's when I got anchored in it, this capacity to be in two minds. I could be in the mind past the amnesia and mesmerization. That's where all the consults and activations, everything I do comes from. And I could also struggle with the linear mind, the linear time mind, where there's a recovery, where you're literally forced. You're forced. You don't do this by choice. You're forced to try to recover from a past that we didn't even create. We don't come in pure, like a lot of new kids do. And I don't mean pure like sin or holy. I mean, we don't have our right mind. But a lot of the new kids do. In fact, two of them are my doctors, which I'm very grateful for, I might add. And also, many of you are beginning to feel your mind. And that mind doesn't relate to the existing reality that you're presently in. And the present occurring of the reality seems to be the perception here, which actually may not be valid, but we'll stick with that for the moment. And a lot of you, because you're literally healers and you're conscious beings and you're facilitators and you work in consciousness and you work in healing, are literally kind of in limbo because you can't relate to the people you want to serve because what they're relating to doesn't serve them, at least anymore. I'll give it that, although don't ask about my opinion. It doesn't pull them off the cliff and let them go to another cliff by the universe taking care of them, being part of what the universe takes care of. Not us, but the universe takes care of itself. By recognizing and learning itself and constantly keeping itself in unity, harmony, balance, symmetry, grace, and proportion. And ancient civilizations knew this. And somehow me, originally Diane Muriel Spoden, then through my beloved fungi, dolphin, now Tantra Mott, literally never lost that. And yeah, it almost drove me crazy. No kidding. So now what we're going to do today is we're going to move into a conversation that intrigues me, that I don't have answers to. I'm completely in, I don't know, but I am definitely present to something. And so what we're going to do is presence it. And I'm going to turn this over to Liz, just for anything she has to say, anything that came to her during this time. And those of you that are on the YouTube thread, write each other, because the informing isn't I to you. The informing isn't even I to you and receptacle back to me. The informing is what happens between us. The meta point, the unity point is where reality forms. It's not I-centric, it's not people-centric, but it is informing the field-centric. Okay, so I'm turning over to Liz, and Liz, you may have to adjust the thing there. I think that works, right?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
This is really fun. It's fun work. I'm Liz Geyer, and
A little bit of credentials.
let's see. I am a retired special education teacher. I worked for 36 years in the education field. I also am still involved in outdoor recreation. I work with a group of people to staff both a family camp and a resident camp and day camp for young people.
And then say something about what it's like, has been like for you to work with the specific children, what you got present to about the human mind, the human brain, how they seem extraordinary to you.
Yeah. So after retirement, I've moved into a tutoring position with families that are called to work with me. And I work with students who struggle mostly with auditory processing, I would say. And auditory processing is, when you're trying to listen to your teacher, and so many of our teachers still lecture, and you can't understand what they're saying, you can't process what they're saying auditorily, and so it's just a mode of learning that a lot of students struggle with. Some of my students struggle with visual memory as well, and then some of them struggle with, quote, the label ADHD. And they're very active in our sessions, and it's actually a gift to have that, because most people with labeled ADHD are gifted. They're just gifted. And so the students that I am working with now, as Tantra said, came in differently. And that was one of the things that pinged for me, was that these students have been, for me, these students are creation, and creation's informing me through them. I've learned so much magic from them. And I know that it's creation coming through to let me know that I am alive. These students they're no longer in survival mode. In fact, when I try inside, as I'm working with them, to put that label on them while they're just surviving, it immediately gets flicked out of my system, because that's just not the way they are. They're completely alive and in the moment, and they have really profound things to say. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I mean, that's my main career. I'm also an advocate of the Language of Consciousness Institute, and I work with Electra Porzel and some other amazing advocates, and we're working now with a self-study new learning model that we're trying to bring in. And this practice that Tantra and I are in today is part of that new learning model, where we listen with each other. And then whatever comes up for us is it's all new. It's all new, not all new learning that brings us into whatever's next. And it's really exciting. So I have several, what we call pinging. We ping off each other. I have several pings that happen as a result of what Tantra had to say. The first part was when she was talking about the first dream and breathing and that shift of altitude. I realized that the breathing causes us to have to expand our field. And because as I was sitting here, I expanded my field so that I could include more. So I thought that was fascinating because I didn't know that the emotional system had to be calm. That just fascinates me. And then living in survival mentality, again, that kind of pings to what I was just saying about being with the children, that we have to learn from them because they're not in survival mode. They are alive. Let's see, mentality. The car moving from the top of the mountain on this flat road to a new, well, to me, it was moving from the old paradigm to the new paradigm. It was a beautiful analogy for that. And I've been feeling that. I've been having experiences that are showing me that we're definitely in a shifting from the old paradigm to the new paradigm, and that the universe will take care of us. I think as we have experience after experience now, that's proof that creation is taking care of us. And we have to learn to trust that even though in the moment things look like they're in crisis, that as we move through these experiences, we're being taken care of, definitely. This whole experience of driving to Denver is like that. I have my family on one end, with a dear partner that is so supportive. Oh my gosh, he holds the field so beautifully. And he also is a Vietnam veteran, so he worries. That's part of his to do. He worries. He wants to take care of those he loves. And so he sees the more, he sees the more negative end of things of what could happen. And I see the other end of the spectrum of, ooh, what will happen? What are the possibilities? And so it's a nice balance. And so when I told him, well, I don't really know where we're going to be, that was a concern. And the beauty of just knowing that you're taken care of is so magical. I just know on this trip, I'm just getting chills now. I know on this trip, the magic's going to happen because we're giving it over to the universe, So it's just a beautiful thing. As far as amnesia and mesmerization, wow, there's so much to be mesmerized by. And I'm finding, I will confess, YouTube is kind of a go-to right now because it's easy to get onto. And for me, take the pulse of what's happening out there. And I've listened to several programs by MSNBC, and I find that now I can get into maybe 1 or 2 minutes of it, and I can hear the mesmerization, and then I switch it off. And so what do we do with that? What do we do knowing that there is this mesmerization and that we get caught in it? And what I'm finding is I'm gathering a life playlist of music, especially. I am a musician as well. I play the flute and the guitar, and I've sung in many choirs. And so I literally have a playlist of music that makes me feel very, very happy and passionate. And sometimes I go to that, I'll listen to one of those programs, and then I'll get in my library and I'll play my playlist, or I'll watch a movie that I know I love that is just meaningless. I do confess, we also watch what I call trash TV. My family and I are into The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And interestingly, there's a lot to learn about life through these men and women that are putting themselves out there. And I'm watching a new paradigm come in on that show. And I know it is important, even though people say, well, that's nothing. Why are you watching that? But it's fascinating to see the new paradigm coming in there. So, or going out in nature, putting your feet on the earth and, being by the ocean, or just hearing the wind through the trees, that clears all that away. And so I'm developing this playlist to assist me and others through this time, because I use these experiences to also assist my students. I had an experience the other day with a student of mine who has developed verbal tics, and she's in an emotionally unstable time in her young 10-year-old life. And we completed the work we were doing. And then I said, why don't you go move around? Because she's also hyperactive, and she was to the point of where it was like she was going to crawl out of her skin. And so I sent her off to move. And the next thing I heard was she was in imaginative play, doing whatever she was doing. I'm not sure. I know she loves Japanese anime, and maybe she was in that world, but her tics had stopped. And so I categorized that, or cataloged that experience as, okay, that's a place where some of my students can go if they're in stress, to go to their own worlds. Carefully crafted statements is what I heard Tantra talking about. I realize, I have similar experiences as many of you, that in 2012, the world for me exploded. Everything that could happen happened that year. And there was a lot of trauma in my life. Prior to that, I began working with a spiritual guide, and I'll call him WDR. It stands for Wizard Don Ron. And he was my Papa Kent, okay? And he was just a dear. And he started me out in 2008 with carefully crafted statements. I just realized that this morning. And the first one that we came up with was lighting others' paths to knowledge. And that's part of who I am now. And there are several other carefully crafted statements that he helped me to imprint that I still go to now. And again, those carefully crafted statements help me move out of the mesmerization. And they're also anchors. They're anchors for us in this time where we can get dragged back into being mesmerized. So where fungi and Papa Kent and was it Dr. White? Mm-hmm. Those were Tantra's anchors. I have so many teachers as well, and WDR was at the top of my list. Tantra's another. Teachers I even had in college that I remember, teachers that I had in grade school that saw me and knew what my potential was. I still use what they had to say to me and the essence of how they saw me to continue to guide me. I think that's
Good.
a lot. I'm good.
That's great. I just want to thank you so much because I have a new term because I'm reading all this material, getting ready for this course that I and a few others are doing. And my new term is mood. And it is an amazing word for me because usually when we say the word mood, we think of moody. And I'm like, wow, they just completely rematrixed the word for me. And they've given it a frame where emotion and mood are like lovers. It's like they're lovers. But I actually got to live it with Liz's sharing because in our present paradigm, in the paradigm that's falling apart, we're trying to make a point. We're trying to get across information. We're not creating a mood within which creation can occur. We're not using what's rising emotionally to realize that creation is awakening us into as she said, a broader spectrum of our being. It's just all messed up in the perceptive realm of the world we were born into. So what I loved out of her, what she had rising, what she was observing, what she was present to, and what she was reflecting to, which she put on mouth. What happened is we have a mood to move into what I want to do next. And before it would have been more educational or academic, or it would look like I was trying to teach. But no, we want to play. And that was the other thing. The beauty of Liz and what makes her so precious to her people is that she is want to play, but not want to play frivolously, want to play with creation, want to play with what we really are, want to play with discovery. Self-study and self-training are simply the mature spiritual part of us that is what we are capable of as spiritually mature beings on top of want to play, on top of want to play. So I'm going to put up a screen share and I'm going to you're going to see the screen share, and then I'm going to talk and just making it large enough. And I'm going to put it where Liz can see it. And then I'm going to, and I hope it shows up on YouTube. I don't know the interface between YouTube and Zoom, but now I'm going to tell a story. So in this work, it's Newfield Network, a group of us from the field of Tantra came on to a free call with Ulio Odala. And we were, he asked us if we had questions. So a group of us, a bunch of us asked questions. And then I had a question really that came out of his response, the exchange between himself and the people in our field. And here was my question. My question was that I have an amazing group of people in iMagi and in the iGuardian at the gate, who why they're amazing is they're capable. They have developed their capacity. It's not inherent. It is inherent, but you had to regain that inherentness to not only peel off the fabric of identification that has us stay in suffering, identify with suffering so dramatically, but they also have the capacity to scale. And one of the challenges I see in the engagements I do with people that I don't call consults, because it's more we're engaging in our unity with creation, and the activations, is that human beings have become mesmerized by an identity that separates the human being from life itself. All of life. Life is an enrichment experience, whether it's sorrow or joy. It was never meant to be dead and fearful of deep emotion and profound experience and extraordinary awareness. And we were never meant to be separate from ourselves or others or from creation itself. This is all the mesmerization that we have found ourselves in, that with being amnesiac and not being able to have the trackers and the registers within us that let us track through the fog, track through the labyrinth of mesmerization, we get lost in it. So it's a huge intent of the Language of Consciousness Institute and of more refined work that I do. And so what happened in that conversation with Julio was I asked him a question, and I was talking about the iMagi group. It's not a specific group. People can come on to it anytime to self-study and self-train. Because if you can't self-study or self-train, if you're still looking for information outside yourself as the answer, if that framework you're in, you get more empty inside. You don't get full. But if you take the information as you have now been informed and you filter it through your reflection of yourself and your own strength of your own awareness, it forcing yourself to be aware, really, honestly, then a whole new structure, Liz called it a paradigm of consciousness that's outside that mesmerization of a fragmented identity begins to show up. So my question was, I was flabbergasted by, and Liz and I were talking about this, by in this group that's learned to be transparent, learn to self-study, learn to self-train, has an incredible ability to peel away and be vulnerable, incredibility to bobble through scaling. When we would start iMagi, and we still do, by the way, by questions, and it was dead in the water. And you could see them, even though we were on audio, I could see them because of what I am, frozen in time and space. It was the weirdest thing. Because believe me, they do chat. And I remembered Ireland, where when I asked them to share, because they had literally sharing could cost them their lives, and the British had invaded them and taken over their country. Nobody shared. It was like dead silence. And so I was asking about that. And what he said in his framework of perception, and he showed me a graph, which is not this one. He basically said it's no longer the individual self that we're seeing, what I would say, rise in the field. We're seeing this cultural response of a system that doesn't dare remember itself. And I'm a little bit misquoting him, but that's basically what he said. Is scared, terrified to remember itself because it remembers the trauma of that the self and the capacity to be self had so many events where it couldn't survive here in the human domain. Well, it was a 4-minute conversation that lit a fire under me. And so I offered the Scribble Work. You're looking at Scribble Work here. And because when I can scribble and the person can watch it, I literally them watching my hand and literal them watching me scribble keeps their mind from fixating or forming a fixed boxed phenomenon. It literally opens up their mind through the eye, your eyes, like the blink. It literally opens up that, what's that called?
Optical.
Optical. It literally opens up that optical link to the midbrain that literally takes you out of optical illusion. Literally, you start to see differently. So that's why we call it Scribble Work. And believe me, it's very funny to do Scribble Work with me, because if you went back to look at it to try to figure out what I did, I've written all over everything, but it's the act of the Scribble Work. Well, this phenomenon happened in this Scribble Work. My own awareness of what was occurring was a broader spectrum that we are and we are occurring in. And it isn't like we are becoming. It's that our sense of identification, our sense of perception is becoming. We're fine. We're just mesmerized and amnesic. But we're still in there, or we wouldn't have been doing what we're doing, fighting for what we're fighting for. We wouldn't be in such a bloody struggle. We would be robots walking around parroting information and knowledge, basically like The Walking Dead. So this actually came out of that. And then I knew timeless time was coming, and we'd done it one other time, where people took their visions and put them on folded paper, which we would probably do it again, maybe not, who knows. And then I had them using their eyes. I had them place these folded little tent of what they felt was real in front of them in a room, and it's called spatial dimensionality. And so they would literally feel like, well, that's right here close to my foot. And then that's over there by the fireplace. And oh my God, I think that one needs to be higher. And one person even hung it from a lamp. This is part of our intelligence, part of our working brain that we never have developed, that we developed covertly in nature, because we never say, what is it about nature and being where something spatial, or being in a very small space that some of us like me, to feel cuddled, like, what's her name? The autistic woman.
Oh, Temple Grandin.
Like Temple Grandin. She used to have a thing that's how she learned how to calm cows before they were slaughtered, that literally it would hold her tight so that she could feel safe psychologically, but it also did something with parts of our intelligence that we just have nothing, hardly at all, that we can consciously be related to, and consciously develop this spatial differentiation, dimensionality, and develop this ability to fold the body in when it's coming into deep knowledge, and expand the body out when it's taking in broad, BDW, broader spectrums of awareness, like what Liz said about, she noticed this whole a phenomenon that she became aware of about being in high altitude. It calms the emotions and seems to build a larger field. And a field is a spectrum. It's a territory. It's not really literally a territory, because I use territory another way, but it's literally having more landscape within which you can experience creation and experience your unity with it. So that's the first part. And by the way, don't plan on understanding me. It's what happens to you after. This is a spectrum event. It's what happens after this conversation you want to be aware of, not what happens during, because you can only use the you're literally going to be fighting the mesmerization and the amnesia as I talk. You're literally going to find it fighting for itself. And but one of my gifts is I can break it through. I can somehow, I'm that crazy creature that runs around with a big tail, getting you out of the labyrinth somehow. And I can't say I get any credit for it. I just came that way. So we might as well use it, don't you think, since I did come that way. So the thing that occurred, which is why I wanted to have a living field, that means you all in the field with Liz and I, why I wanted to do this is because by my being with you in the field begins to pulse and hum and vibrate and respond, and not only inform, but is also being informed by us. It happens simultaneously. We are being informed by creation, and creation is being informed by us. And so because we were going to be together, because Liz has this uncanny ability that I can't even identify with, that she does with people, I knew it would be perfect. Like some things you just know, it's like good theater. You just know when you have the people cast for the right roles. That's the best way to say it. So this is going to be really strange, what I'm about to say. But because the part that's going to be illogical and unrational and seem not to make sense in any way is our relationship with time. So when you look at this, And this is what we're going to try to crack the code on, crack the mesmerization on. We're just going to go for it. It'll do what it does. Is that you don't realize that I lives in time a certain way. We lives in time a certain way. They lives in time a certain way. Us lives in time a certain way. It lives in time a certain way. And imagine it like a accordion. Sometimes I'm I-centric, sometimes I'm we-centric, sometimes I'm they-centric, sometimes I'm us-centric, sometimes I'm it-centric. So for those of you that have been in the field of Tantra Mat, I'm a mystic. So I am clearly, most of my time is spent with it, creation in my terminology, but it can be it anything. It's the greater whole of which we're a part. It can be God, it can be Buddha, it can be spirit, it can be the planet. It's just a bigger spectrum that is non-human in its capacity, but it is part of me and I am part of it. In other words, we are part, everything you're looking at on the screen is, we are part of it. It is part of us. All of these, we, I, they, us, it. We are part of that. I am that. We are that. They are that. It is that. And we have a tendency to redact down to find the one thing that applies to everything. Well, one thing doesn't apply to everything, but everything is part of everything else. Everything does operate on behalf of everything else. And everything is a relationship with everything else. So what I saw in the Scribble work I was doing with people is, oh my God, we were experiencing cohesion. It's unbelievable to me. And unfortunately, we have, when you start these conversations, there's this like, I don't know. I'm looking at Liz. Like you get brownie points if you're enlightened.
Yeah.
It isn't about being enlightened. It's about being what we are. I mean, it's pretty pragmatic, actually. It's pretty normal when we're there. But when we are in cohesion, means we can no longer be divided. We can no longer be divided. The I can no longer be divided from itself. The I is no longer divided from we, and we is no longer divided from I. The I, we is no longer divided from they, and the they is no longer divided from I, we. And the us is no longer divided from the they, we, I. And the I is no longer divided from the we, they, us. And the it, which is never divided from us, but the perceptively and the way we register and the way our neural pathways are organized, it does occur as if we're divided from it. So it's made us sick and it's made us paranoid. It's made us think we have to survive without it. We don't even know it's there. So you can get a feel for what I'm saying. But when we're restored, when our systems are restored, the it is part of us, they, we, I. So, and then I am that. And where I am that isn't a single identity. It's every one of these. It's I as it, I as us, I as they, I as we. So just take that in for a minute. Just take that in for a minute. And all that exists in time. And we are not independent of time. Just take that in for a minute. And time has gotten stagnated or stymied or stalled, or one of those words, if you think a better one, what I say, tell me. And I am recovering from suffering from the past. Aberrated. So time has become aberrated. We're caught in a loop. I'm talking about human beings. We're caught in a loop. I have to recover from the past is our time loop. And our future is only organized by what we've considered recovery from the past. What I just said to you, that is not, there is no past present, no past there. I can't say present, but there's no past there. There's no future either. That's why Liz can say that these be here now children have no suffering. They have agitation and they have emotional scaling, but they just are in the moment, be here now, which is timeless time. It's timeless time because there's no past and there's no future. There's only the present. And then your I as, I, we at, I, we as, I, we, they as, I, we, they, us as, I, we, they, us, it as. And then that colors what we can call clock time. It colors clock time. Okay, breathe. Everybody breathe. Because I can't go any further with that until we can interact. But why it's so precious, the people that are gathering, I really want you to know this. Because there'll be more people not coming than coming because we're terrified. We have learned to be healthy in our prison. We have, do you know if you've ever, and I had the opportunity to do this, I had a Vietnam vet. Oh, I'm going to cry. I'm crying all the time now. Because we're on the edge of something so extraordinary that's going to happen. And, but he had amnesia from a traumatic event that all his buddies knew about. It was horrible, and I'm not going to bring it up here. It could definitely influence the field. But he was with me one day, and we were taking a walk, and he had come. His wife had asked me to do a reading for him. You've heard this. He was a mercenary. Later, after being in Vietnam, he was a mercenary. He did terrible things, and because she was going to leave him, and he flouted it. He got drunk and flouted these terrible atrocities he did. So I said, okay. And I was really not looking forward to it. Really not. And she said, he's not who I remember. He's not who I married. There's no remnant of him there. And I sat down to do the reading with him and started sobbing uncontrollably, because everything he had been through came flooding into me. And all I could get out of my mouth was, I'm so sorry. And it broke him, the dam broke. And all we did for that hour was, this big old vet and I just held him in my arms, and we sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. He never took another drink after that day. And for Jesus' sake, for God's sake, don't make me cause in this matter. It's because we showed up in the same place at the same time that something became available that was not available if we weren't there. That is timeless time. And after that happened, he never took another drink from that day. And he, my friends, started the Boys Club in Washington, D.C. The first Boys Club. That's my vet. So he and I were walking a few years later. We took a walk, really trying to suss out what happened in that moment. What was that? And he said to me, you know, amnesia protects the traumatized. It protects us from the trauma, but at some point, like with the Boys Clubs, he said, at some point we have to be willing to risk remembering, and even if we remember that which closed us down, not closed us down as I, closed us down as we, closed us down as they, closed us down as us, and closed us down from it. And that day has come. That day has come. So I knew it. I knew that I'd have less activations. I knew that I'd have less clients. I knew that this would happen because at the beginning of this year, I'm at the border where non-duality it has an aberration point in duality, where duality no longer has the gift of being both and. and has been forced into either or. And so I and we have to be separate. That's why there's so much divorce. I and I have to be separate. That's why there's so much teenage suicide. Or those young people have come in with brains that won't aberrate, and yet they don't belong in the society they were born into. I and they have to stay separate. I and us, we and us have to stay separate because the trauma memory is so intense. But we've done so much work in recovering as an I from the trauma. And then I watched the movement. It's not that you don't be in trauma recovery, but not from the past, but by being what you came to be, being aware of self, being real in what you know to be real with yourself, not in your actions. We're not talking about actions today, but to return to the knowing of I am that. And that where I am that, even if it doesn't seem to belong here, is what we're in now. We're in that. So I want you to know that the people will be gathering those days in April. They're on behalf of all of it, on behalf of us, on behalf of they, the collective they'll be together in, on behalf of we who won't be there, and on behalf of themselves. And that is the I am that. And it does live in time. For me, I think it's April 7th through April 9th or something like that. And that's we put what the timeless time in time. So the last thing I want to say, and then we have about 6 minutes after that. And I know that's why I'm going to say this and then turn over. She's standing on my foot and jumping out of the chair. So I'm trying a whole bunch of big sandbags on her to keep her down right now, energetically. But the thing is that then we say what time is for us. Are we at work in I time? Are we at work in we time? In calendar. Are we at work in they time? Are we at work in us time? At any moment in time, where are we in time? And what is our direct relationship with time on behalf of? I'm very eccentric. Believe me, if you all were gone tomorrow, I wouldn't even, except for missing you, I'd be fine. I do not require human beings. That's what a mystic is. That's my primary. But I've developed a we self like Diane Bennett that insisted on being my friend. I learned what friend was. So I have we's. It's the most amazing, exciting thing for me because my primary isn't we oriented. It's not its primary, or it wasn't when it got here. So some of us are I-centric, fine. Some of us are they-centric. People call that self-sacrifice. We don't have to sacrifice the self. If you get that's who you are, and that's what you use time for, that becomes your I. Do you understand? And of course, I work also in us, primary, because I work in field phenomena. All right, that's all I got. I'm turning it over to Liz. She has 5 minutes, and if she goes over, we went over 10 minutes last time, but I can't go over 15.
Yeah, I don't think.
All right, we're going to turn this off.
But I like to look at it.
You do?
Yeah, only.
Okay, so let me do it another way. All right, now I can tell you're there.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, go. So
I'll just go into this configuration, what I call a configuration. I did draw this. So it was amazing when I drew it because I could feel the expansiveness of it. The original drawing that was done through Newfield was in blocks, in squares. And when I looked at that drawing, I felt very constricted.
And the interesting thing is how the Scribble Work started was I spiraled it.
Yes, Tantra drew a spiral in the middle of it. And it started to shift the way that I viewed things. And then I also have to throw this in because I'm sure most of you have done Myers-Briggs testing, and Myers-Briggs uses the same square. And I was just of realizing how cool would that be to reconfigure a Myers-Briggs into a spiral, because it would be so much more expansive. I got really excited when I thought about that. But anyway, so when I drew this, I could really feel the entirety of I, we, they, us, it, and I am that. And I remember Tantra saying, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I am that, and where I am that is, and I couldn't get to that. It was too linear for me at that time. And as soon as I drew this, and interestingly, the arrow here in the spiral, that's a never ending, it's never ending. And I could feel the entirety of the I, we, they, us, it. And yes, no time, timeless time in that. And I can feel the entire field of the I, we, they, us, it. And I love how it's sort of like, if you're in theater and you play several scenes where you have to change your costume in a way. I can feel the change of costume here very, very easily, of shifting in between all of these. And the I heard the word guilt come up as Tantra was saying the word I, no longer in guilt. That because the I is all of these. So when I say I now, I don't mean, I look at me, I'm so cool and I'm all that in a bag of chips, which I love to say that because I think that's a cool expression. There's none of that. It's all of this included. It's so cool.
Let me add something to that. So for those of you that did the Scribble Work, stay off camera. No. When those of you that did the Scribble Work, and I listened to it, I listened to your recording last night, and what Liz just shared is what was present in your sharing. There was no an I, look at me, look at me, look at me. There was the I as a field being a field. And there was just so much smoothness, nothing to protect. It's interesting what you said about guilt, because there was nobody knew, you all didn't know it as you were sharing, but there just wasn't any guilt or any, oh, I can't talk about myself. People will think I'm egotistical. It just, you didn't even know it. It was completely fluid, because the reason we did that Scribble Work was to break the mesmerization, break the amnesia, and to get us back into what our precious Kristen would call flow. And we did that. You did that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You, we, I, they, it did that.
Yeah, that's just so exciting. And then the other thing I want to mention with Timeless Time, because it was as a result of something just became available that was not available before. And this is the magic for me, the substance, this new alchemy that I'm feeling, that something becomes available in our conversation that wasn't there before. That when I did the last Timeless Time, I used my staircase at home, which I'm going to do again because I love it. The way my staircase goes, it goes up 6 steps, then there's a platform, there's a wall, you turn the corner, then there's another platform that you can look out and opens out into our living room, and then you go up 6 more stairs. And so I didn't realize that I placed the things that I can see in my field in the first 6 stairs. Now, granted, they had time frames on them. Linear time frames, yes. And then the things that I knew that I was, so call it priestess, call it goddess, call it magical alchemist, those things were up the stairs. And I realized today that those were things that I couldn't remember that I do remember now. Fascinating, fascinating. I'm really excited to do it again. But I thought that was really profound. And I'm really grateful that I have this staircase as a great model. Like someone you were saying, used the lamp. I also have to say, you all can't see this. There is a painting in front of us. And this painting, it's fascinating. In the painting here, I can see beings, and they're holding arms with each other. And there is an arc, and I can see this arc as that which is either trying to separate us or that which is trying to unify us. And I can see this arc and the people holding arms, or the beings, because I don't know, this is just how I'm seeing this picture. It's actually an abstract painting, I think, or it's an ocean with a horizon on it and a beam of light. I don't know, but I can see this arc happening, and the arms won't be separated. And so as Tantra's talking, I'm looking at this painting and, quote, analyzing this painting, but it's speaking volumes to me about it. We can't be separated now. I'm complete.
Very good. Beautiful. So thank you all. Thank you for being with us today. We went over 3 minutes, score. Have a great day. I look forward to your linear tomorrow and your forever. Be here now. Take care.